So a lot of businesses think their marketing problem is down to low traffic, it's down to weak adverts, or just not enough leads. And that's the reason the business is either plateauing or it's just not really where they want it to be. But often the real problem is simpler, but it's also deadlier as well. And the real problem is your customers just don't get what you're saying. Not because they're not smart, but because you're too close to your own product. You actually know it inside out. You know how to explain it in a way which makes sense to your team, but perhaps not to your customers. And it only makes sense to your team and leaves everyone else confused when you try and pitch them on it. And when people are confused, they end up not buying. So to paint this into an example for you, imagine you're tapping the rhythm of happy birthday on a table. You can pause this video and do it right now. Listen to yourself. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. You know how the song goes, right? You might think because that's a really common song that people would instantly understand what you're tapping and instantly recognize it. Well, a famous experiment by a Stanford researcher called Elizabeth Newton in 1990 tested exactly this. They got people who were tapping out tunes and they called them tappers, and they predicted that if you're tapping out a tune like Happy Birthday, at least 50% of listeners will guess that song correctly, right? Because it's obvious the song that you're playing, right? But here's the actual shocking truth. Only 2.5% of listeners could actually identify the tune. The tappers could clearly hear the song Happy Birthday in their heads, but the listeners who were trying to pick up on what song they were actually tapping to heard nothing but just random taps. And this disconnect is actually called the curse of knowledge. When you know something deeply, it's easy to forget that your audience doesn't actually share that same level of understanding. If your marketing isn't getting results, you might be suffering from this curse, because a lot of companies I've consulted for are actually suffering from this very thing. So today I'm going to give you 3 simple fixes to break the curse of knowledge so your customers finally understand and buy what you sell, basically. So let's get into it. Principle number 1. This is something I like to call the expert's blind spot. When you're an expert, your brain fills with jargon and it fills with acronyms and advanced knowledge, but your customer's brain doesn't actually have this advantage. And what's clear to you is confusing actually to your customers. I once worked with a business that described itself as revolutionizing end-to-end procurement, synergy through blockchain-enabled disintermediation. Sounds fancy, but do you have any idea what that means? I certainly didn't when I first heard of that little slogan there. But we simplified it to cut out the middleman and save money with secure blockchain technology, which makes far more sense because blockchain's a thing which a lot of people have heard of, and we understand that it's about cutting out the middleman and actually being secure. So this small tweak of making it much more easy to understand actually boosted signups by 30%. Same service, just with a clearer language as well. And here's how you fix the expert's blind spot. So first, you use something called the grandmother test. You explain your business to someone outside of the industry. When you explain things to grandma's not up on technology. So you have to break things down very simply and you have to explain it in a way which doesn't have any jargon in it. So picture in your head that you're explaining your business to your grandma. If she looks confused, or if they ask questions, whoever this person is, simplify your explanation a little bit further. And next, ditch the jargon. So review your website, your marketing materials, or remove complicated industry terms. If you must use technical words, you clearly got to explain them in a simple language immediately after. So for instance, I used to work in the financial industry where we were helping people with problem debt. And this industry is very tough for people to understand, the clients, because it's complicated. It has big long terms such as, creditors, such as bankruptcies, such as MAP, right? It has all these long complicated terms. And the way to do this is you can't really get around it because a creditor is a creditor at the end of the day, but you can just define it afterwards. If I was going to write to the creditor saying your creditors may get in touch with you, I would say your creditors may get in touch with you. These are the people that you owe money to. So it's just a very simple explanation that you can put after what you've actually just said, which is the technical term, right? So Finally, after you've done that and you've made it simple, you use analogies. So when explaining a new idea, you've got to compare it to something your audience already knows. Your audience already has a base of knowledge in one or two particular things. So if I was to say, if I was to sell a dog walking service that you could get in contact on your phone, I would link that to an already existing idea. So I would say something like, we're like the Uber, but for dog walking. So I've taken an already existing idea because everyone knows what Uber is, and I've just put my business on it because people will understand, oh, okay, so you can kind of get in touch with, it tells this whole story basically. Principle number 2, plain English sells better. So next, remember that when you say something very clearly and simple, it isn't just dumbing it down, it's actually far more persuasive. So studies consistently show that websites written at an 8th grade reading level convert at a much higher rate. So take billionaire Warren Buffett, for example. He's famous for writing letters to his shareholders in plain, very easy to understand language. He doesn't have any of this confusing financial jargon. He's just clear with the words that he's using and everyone seems to understand him. And it's why ultimately people trust him so much. Here's how you can fix your language for clarity. So first of all, shorten your sentences and swap fancy words for simple ones. So instead of saying utilize, you just say use instead. Instead of saying facilitate, you just say help instead. And you use an active voice when you say these things. You don't say, this form must be completed by you. Instead, you clearly say, please complete this form. So for instance, when you use an active voice, it's actually a good part of behavioral science because we're making the prompt that we need the person to do very clear, very actionable. It's easy to understand as well. You can actually try free online tools. I've used paid ones before, but there's free online tools out there. Free online readability tools like the Hemingway apps, which will allow you to check your writing, and you can aim for grade 8 readability. Because once you do that and you've broken that text down all the way down to grade 5, it's very easy to understand what you're trying to say in the text, and your audience will understand that and therefore convert at a much higher rate as well. After you've made it very easy to read, you need to then format for skimmers. You use short paragraphs, clear headings, bullet points, because people skim before they decide to read deeply. I'm actually a skimmer. When I'm reading scientific research or stuff on behavioral science, I will read deeply, but because I have to read a lot of information per day, I just don't have the time, quite frankly, to read everything. So a lot of things I skim through to see if it's worth my time reading. So remember, there's skimmers who are busy people out there like me who will look at your bullet points, they will look at your conclusion, they will look and judge from that whether they need to go deeper. Give them the pass to go deeper by having these skimming options to make it interesting for them. So principle number 3, listen and use your client's words against them. So finally, the easiest way to connect deeply with customers is to speak their language. And the best way to speak their language is simple. You just listen to them. So I helped a debt advice organization, and they were giving debt advice to clients. And really the debt advice and the solution would be they get to pick from a variety of different debt solutions, and these debt solutions would reduce the amount of debt the person has over time. It was a real feel-good thing. It was completely free. It was like charity-based, right? But really what would happen with the debt each year was like the debt would reduce by a certain amount because the person would be paying in an affordable way towards the debt, and the charity itself will be stopping interest, right? But rather than saying that in their actual marketing to their clients, which wouldn't make any sense, a person in debt is not going to think to themselves, I want to pay down 1 to 3% of my debt each year, and when I do that in 20 years time, depending on how much debt was, I might be debt free. They're not going to think like that. What they are going to think like is, since I've had this debt, I've not been able to sleep properly. I can't think about anything else because it's constantly taking up mental space in my head. And so what this charity did is they started putting this in their communication. Things like, I just want to sleep knowing that my debt is being taken care of and that I don't have to worry about it. And they started putting that in the communications, and guess what? All of their conversion rates went up. Instantly, customers felt understood and conversions improved almost immediately. So here's how you can fix this in your own business. You've got to read your reviews and support messages. I see so many businesses that don't read any of their reviews, any of their feedback from customers, which to me is frankly quite odd, but you've got to do it. If that's you, you've got to read these things. And you've got to notice the exact words your customers use and mirror those words as well in your marketing. And you've got to answer your customers' questions directly. If your customers are asking, for instance, you're selling like a spreadsheet product or something which is similar to a spreadsheet, and your customers frequently ask, how is this better than using a spreadsheet? You've got to create a clear headline or an FAQ saying exactly that and handling that objection and handling that question. Also as well, very, very important, there's lots of research around this, but you've got to talk about you, not we. So instead of saying we automatically back up data, you've got to say, you never have to worry about losing your files again. See how we've taken it from we to you. People are self-interested, and there's lots of psychology on this, that when you create the same communication or marketing piece and we end up putting you in instead of we, it actually converts at a higher rate as well. So as a quick recap to this video, to break the curse of knowledge and make sure your customers understand and buy, you've got to remember these 3 points. You've got to simplify your language and remove the jargon, the expert's blind spot. You've got to use your plain English because clarity actually builds trust, and there's plenty of tools out there which you can do this with. You've got to listen carefully to your customers and use their exact words as well. So when a customer lands on your site and thinks, finally, someone who gets me, you've basically already won. All your conversions will go up as well, and it's based on actual psychological principles, okay? And clarity and being clear to your customers is just one first step. Many businesses still fail to actually convert because they're using persuasion tactics incorrectly or not using them at all. Next, if you want to watch my video on this subject, the 5 persuasion mistakes quietly killing your conversions, you can click here right now and I'll show you these exact mistakes. I'll show you how to fix them step by step as well. Okay, take care, see you in that video.